All right, welcome to the Daily Recap, January 7th, 2018. I am Breaky CPK, of course, and once again here from DC as I'm going to be attending the final day. We have the finals today, a best of 5 grand finals, and I don't want to spoil it just yet, as we're going to get into it in here in a second. But going to the grand finals here, going to be watching that, obviously super excited. Currently, it's actually, the event has technically started today. They're doing a show match right now. I believe it's an ability draft with a lot of the talent, They're having some fun with it. I was watching the stream, but let's just say I might have had a little bit of a late night last night. I didn't drink too much, but I did wake up with a little bit of a headache this morning, and it was nice to at least sleep in somewhat. So I took advantage of that, but now feeling pretty good. Took a shower. Going to be going to get some breakfast after this, then heading on over to the venue. All right, with that in mind, we got plenty to talk about once again today, including, of course, kicking it off with the with recapping what took place on what was technically day number 2 of the main event. So, scrolling things down here, as you can see, do have a spoiler. Ultimately, Vici Gaming advancing on to the grand finals. They're going to be playing Team Secret later on today, again in that best of 5 to determine who the Captain's Draft champion truly is. But going back, so yesterday kicked off obviously with Vici Gaming versus Complexity. I did make the prediction Complexity was going to win it. Obviously there was some fanboyism in that, some bias, whatever you want to call it. I definitely root for Complexity. There is no secret there. And that probably clouded my judgment a little bit, because when we saw the matches, guys, Vici Gaming right now, they're on fire. This team is looking very, very good. Overall, they've been looking pretty good coming to this event. I did mention that. I love this roster as well. I've realized that more and more as time has gone on here. What was that? Not sure what that... Did I just get a sub during the daily recap? That's hilarious. Well, thanks for the sub, whoever that was. I don't have the notifications on. I'll have to look at that here in just a second. Again, I actually don't even have the live stream chat pulled up. I was just planning to... I'm live streaming for the sake of recording this daily recap, so I do apologize that I'm not able to give you the shout out right here. But I'll look to do that here in just a second. Anyways, back on track. So, Vici's roster, we have Paparazzi, again, he's been a very strong player on the scene throughout this last year especially. He's one of these carry players that not only is very good in the laning phase, but just very fun to watch. But Ori as well, this is a man that really has stepped up to being the argument as one of the best mids in the player. From later on last season, going on into this year, I think he's a name that when you think of a mid player, he's one that you're going to have to look out for as kind of being on the top of the tier list right there. And you kind of look at their success so far this season and what they've been able to do. Of course, they got to the finals of the Perfect World Masters. They did ultimately lose to Newbie there, 3-0. But, casting that event, they looked very strong there throughout as well. Overall, they've had another runner-up finish, of course, at Dota Pit, where they took it 5 games against Team Liquid. Many would say that the best team out there, of course, right now being the defending TI champion. So, again, the results have definitely spoken to suggest that they're a team that you really should be looking out for from the Chinese region. I really think it's them and Newbie are kind of on top of the list, is very safe to say, when it comes to teams out of China. Point is, going back to yesterday, they dominated Complexity. Complexity did not belong in that series, frankly, in that series right there. And it was a little bit unfortunate because obviously there was a lot of fans for Complexity there, not only being an American tournament, but a lot of their family was there. The Complexity family, specifically from Kyle and Z-Freak, they happen to live in that area here on the East Coast, in the Baltimore, Maryland area, etc. And so they made a point. There was at least 30 people here or so that made it out from their family. So no doubt there was some pressure on them as well from that. In the end, they're just happy to see them being able to compete in person. It's not an opportunity that they get to do too often with all these events, being across the country or in different countries for the most part. So it was still a very cool experience, I'm sure, and they got to enjoy it. But Vici Gaming, again, both games, they absolutely destroyed Complexity. And I do think there was a fault of a draft in both of the games from Complexity. I remember, again, watching the games and talking over with people that I was sitting with. First game, they finished with the Drow Ranger in their draft, when it really didn't have the most synergy. There were a couple other heroes on there that we were expecting. I'm kind of blanking right now, thinking back to it, which heroes were available, but the Drow Ranger, it didn't make sense. But it was kind of one of those, okay, they went Drow, There's maybe a little bit of synergy. Well, okay, well, let's see how this works out. And it didn't. I mean, they got destroyed. On the other hand, they also gave Ori OD, which I think is a massive issue. In fact, you look at Vici Gaming's lineup with the Disruptor, Juggernaut, Brewmaster, OD, and Vengeful Spirit. That's a lineup. Okay, I mean, it's seeing a Juggernaut. Juggernaut actually ended up playing the offlane from Young 11, who he really built a position one. Ultimately, he went to Battle Fury, even I think it was. So he kind of took over. So it maybe wouldn't be a true captain's mode draft by any means, but Ori getting OD, that's arguably his strongest hero, honestly, and it showed here in this game. He just absolutely wrecked middle lane. They ended up running a Bat Rider middle. That was the other thing that was just kind of off from complexity. Again, it's captain's draft. You do have to be versatile, like we said, with the offlane Juggernaut that Vici ran. It's understandable sometimes. The Drow Ranger, though, it just did not fit. And Chessie on the Drow could not get anything going whatsoever. Completely locked down. Vici wrecked them in the first game. The second game, kind of a similar story. They finally picked the Ursa, which, again, it felt a little bit like, okay, let's see how this works. But I remember there was a couple of other heroes on the board right there that stood out so much more to me personally, and several others that I was talking with. And Ursa against the lineup of Vici Gaming, it just felt like it was going to be weak as well. It was before the Bloodseeker was even picked, but, going into a Medusa with that Stonegaze could be annoying. You got Brewmaster, who no doubt is very annoying and proved to be in that game. You have Sand King, who can get away very effectively, as also lock him down. And then they finished it with the Bloodseeker, who, of course, tends to be pretty good against him as well on top of it. So, again, the Ursa final pick also proved to not be the strongest. But honestly, when it came to play as well, Vici Gaming just looked freaking amazing. They looked really good. They took that series. OG later on did take out Team Empire 2-0 as well. Pretty similar story here. OG, they dominated Team Empire for the most part. They went with the Arc Warden carry in the first game. And then they actually... Wait, this was... No, never mind. That wasn't that game. They OG did something very interesting in the series outside against Vici Gaming later on, but... So they went on to win that series 2-0, not to drag on too long here. But then in this series, Vici Gaming versus OG, again, Vici Gaming looked very dominant. And we're talking about now a team in OG who a lot of people would have predicted to win this event. This being Captain's Draft, they are the defending champions. They've had some momentum coming in. I don't want to say that they didn't look like they belonged in the series by any means, but Vici Gaming, the first game especially, they wrecked them pretty hard. Now, OG, this is what I was getting at. They did run a funky strategy. What I was hoping was going to be a Rasta mid, actually. They ended up doing a Dazzle mid. No-Tail ended up playing Dazzle mid against a Queen of Pain, which in that matchup actually could fare decently. But it didn't really scale the best for them. Things got out of hand elsewhere. They were also running an offlane Spirit Breaker, which S4, he died over and over again in the beginning. Again, offlane Spirit Breakers, not the most effective offlane hero, as showed there. And Vici Gaming handled that one pretty decisively. Game number 2 was a little bit closer, much more back and forth. Resolution, holy crap. He really did his best to carry in game number 2. He was playing the Terrorblade, actually, and he was constantly 5,000 plus net worth over anyone in the game up until the very end where they ended up losing, of course, but he was doing very, very well. However, it was only him. No-Tail and Viper, he just struggled. He went somewhat of a... tried to go for the early Orchid, and it did not scale the best. He wasn't able to get the best timing with it, and he could never really use it effectively. He started to fall off. And Vici Gaming, Paparazzi, he got to play Weaver, which it kind of goes back to whenever a player is able to get arguably his most iconic hero in Captain's Draft, it almost feels like you've done something wrong, right? Now, there's only 3 bans initially, so it's understandable. It's going to happen sometimes, but Vici, Paparazzi, he showed why he's known for playing Weaver. He was like 17-0-18 at a point, I think it was, in this game. He finally did die once, but it was on the final fight where they ultimately won that fight, and then they went on to win the game right after he ended up buying back, and they pushed on from there. So, looked very good. Vici Gaming decisive victory. They moved on to the finals, so OG finishes in that 3rd, 4th place spot with Mineski. That sets up our finals for today. Team Secret versus Vici Gaming. And honestly, this should be a very good best of 5 grand finals. If Vici Gaming plays like, as far as which team was more impressive in the playoff stage, I think it's definitely Vici Gaming. And that might be a little bit of reacting just to what we saw yesterday, but Vici Gaming looked very clean, very good. It kind of makes me want to lean towards them taking this series. And I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to say 3-1 Vici Gaming. I'm going to say 3-1 Vici Gaming. I do think Secret's obviously more than good enough to at least take a game off of Vici. But going purely off of momentum right now, and just in general lately, obviously Secret's very successful too. They're the top teams on the standings for a reason when it comes to the Dota 2 Pro circuit. But Vici Gaming, specifically with yesterday, they are here to win this event, which frankly I didn't know if I would expect that going in. This kind of being the captain's draft format and everything, you kind of in them having to travel all this way to America, were they going to be the most focused, the most hyped for it? Yesterday they were. We'll see if that continues in today, and if it does, I have them winning 3-1. It should be a great best of 5 finals, though, no matter what, when it's all said and done. All right, so that's that. A couple of other updates to make on some other events going on. These qualifiers, actually. This is for the GESC, which is going to be, it's a minor, right? Yeah, it's going to be a minor, actually set to happen in Jakarta, which is in Indonesia over there. It's going to be in mid-March, so it's still a little bit of time for this event, but a couple of the qualifiers taking place. Figured it was worth at least going over that. There was already the only direct invite team, apparently, which that's kind of interesting. Wow, so they only have one direct invite team, and that's going to be EG, which, we can talk about that forever. Are they worthy of an invite, being an only invite team? No, they're not, but when it comes to the business side of it, obviously EG is still a huge brand. They have great marketing players, and a large fan base that want to see them. So the event decided to throw them the invite. Again, I'm not against it. I don't think that they deserved it, but I understand it, kind of. Anyways, they only have one invite team because they're apparently going to have an Indonesia-specific qualifier, which is it's a little bit unique. I don't know if we've really seen an event do this yet, where they throwing in another specific region qualifier just for the sake of getting a team from that place. But so that's essentially going to be their second invite team. They want to make sure to get a team from Indonesia specifically, and I mean I can appreciate that. Again, they're running the event in Indonesia. They want to make sure to have a team to represent them there. Will they ultimately do well? I don't know if there's really any Indonesian teams that stand out. Are there any currently in the qualifiers? No, so they're still trying to figure that out. Off the top of my head, I don't think there's any Indonesian teams that come to mind. But, that'll be fun. It's going to be a good experience for them. And so that's taking place. Anyways, back to what I wanted to go over here. I believe the CIS region. Oh, well, whatever. Anyway, so the CIS region going on, as well as the South American region. CIS, you have Na'Vi, Spirit, Gambit, and Vega Squadron taking place here in this minor qualifier. So only a 4-team, all of them direct invites as well. So, that's another debate in itself. Should there be an open qualifier spot? Valve said that it doesn't need to be. They just said you need to make sure to run a qualifier. Whether you invite or you have open qualifier spots is up to you. So here are the 4 teams. You see how it's breaking down so far. Spirit beat Gambit, and Na'Vi took out Vega Squadron. And right now they're actually tied 1-1. So it looks like they're in Game 3 as I'm recording this. That's going to be interesting. Again, Spirit, I've suggested, they're a team that you cannot underrate out of the CIS region. I think you got Virtus Pro, of course, on top. You have Na'Vi and Empire as kind of the next tier. And then you have Spirit and Vega Squadron, I think just slightly under them as well. More so Spirit, personally, as of late. Vega Squadron's been going through some rocky changes with their roster and everything, so I think Spirit definitely ahead of them. But a team that most certainly could qualify, so it'll be interesting to see how this all works out. Every team's still in it right now, being a double elimination format, as you can see. And then there's South America. I had these tabs backwards. GG. Anyways, South America, you have SG Esports, T-Show Rising, Mad Kings, and Infamous as the 4 teams playing in these qualifiers. So a couple of teams that, some of the players have seen before somewhat, but, obviously South America still trying to find its footing ultimately. SG and Infamous advancing on. No surprise there. It's going to be one of those 2 teams qualifying for this. We'll see which one ends up qualifying, but yeah, it's no surprise to see them too in the winter final. So those are some quick updates right there. And then we have the, let me go ahead and actually get off of Steam real quickly. And then we actually have our final piece of information to bring up today. Well, actually a couple of things. One, Team Animal Planet, yet another team announced. Again, I've been suggesting with so many free agent players, there has to be there has to be these team announcements coming out. We saw a couple yesterday. some roster changes and the new Team World, as they're known as. Now we have Team Animal Planet, and you look at this roster right here, very interesting. So we have Ritsu, joined by Bryle, with Moon Meander at the 3. Aoi 2000 is back at the 4, and then Kit Rakdota. This is a player that I really don't know much about. I was talking with some people last night. I think it was actually Jack, KBBQ. And he was suggesting he's a player that potentially, he has been an up-and-coming player in the NA scene, could be very good. They're not sure yet, though. This is going to be kind of his first prime-time chance to make a name for himself. He's apparently going to be the captain as well. So I don't know what to think of this team. You know, you have some players. Obviously, Ritsu has a very rocky history when it comes to him and playing with teams and ultimately sticking together. So there's that to factor in. There's the Moon Meander situation. Overall, I still think a very good player, of course. But when it comes to him, it's interesting because I love the guy. You know, hanging out with the guy, I think he's a really cool guy. But there has to be some reasons why he's had the journey he's had as well. When it comes to, you know, not being part of teams after, you know, working with him and having some success, most specifically the DC situation. Take that how you will. So we'll see how it works out here. You got Aoi 2000, of course, coming back, obviously bringing tons of experience. Bryle, again, one of these lesser experienced players on the team, going to be playing in the mid position. So I really don't know what to make of this team. I do not see them I definitely don't see them breaking into like the top 3, top 4 teams by any means anytime soon. But hopefully they stick together and at least bring some good competition into the scene. And then there's the final announcement, which is more unfortunate news. Kodiak here, who's the team manager of Optic Gaming, actually, for the Dota 2 team, they officially announced that they, too, are pulling out of the Galaxy Battles event. Now, this one's a little different for me than the other teams, and I was talking about this a little bit yesterday when we were announcing Liquid as well as Secret officially pulling out. Optic Gaming's the 4th official team to pull out here. They were one that I could have seen at least still sticking to it because, again, they're a team that's still trying to get a footing on the scene. They are a still less experienced, younger one as far as the organization goes, and competing in what you would have figured still would have been at least a $500,000 tournament could have been a huge opportunity, right? But this does then bring the other side of it with the whole getting drug tested idea and how they maybe just don't want to do it for the sake of just not feeling the most right about it, feeling scared, however you want to put it. Does this absolutely mean some of their players are druggies and that's why they don't want to go? You know, I'm not going to comment on that. But at the same time, it's understandable. I'll say this from my perspective, guys. First, I've been to the Philippines, like I said recently. I had a great time there. I personally don't do any drugs. I made a point to stay away for that for the most. I've smoked weed like twice in my life, actually, a couple times. Anyways, that's whatever. When I was going to Singapore for the first time, they also have very strict laws when it comes to things like weed, when it comes to, you know, having you on you. And I remember going there for the first time and thinking to myself, like, I don't smoke weed at all. I wouldn't have any on me, but I was still kind of scared knowing how harsh those laws can be. Like, and I was still like worried going into the country knowing that, well, what if somebody plants something on me? Then I'm going to be fucked. Like, it's just, it's understand. I get it. Where, again, and some of these players, maybe they do have some history, smoking weed, whatever. And that alone is scary enough to be like, okay, well, we want to, you know, make sure we're fine, not put ourselves at risk. Let's just not go to the event. And then there's the other side of it too, which we talked about. Again, Fallout Gaming, the organization behind Galaxy Battles, they have had some shady stuff happen with in the past year when it comes to esport events. So I tend to lean towards it's possibly more of that because, again, Valve pulling out the last minute like they did, just things aren't right here, guys. And so it goes back to Optic was one of those teams I wasn't sure, but I'm not surprised either. I'm really not too surprised to see them pulling out as well. And I think that them pulling out really does signify that this event maybe was doomed from the beginning, but is it even going to happen? I don't know. I really don't know. Again, the days will continue to go on. It's set to take place in just over a week from now, and it's not looking good. So there you go. Anyways, guys, that's the daily recap for today of what is January 7th, 2018. I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and I'm going to be heading to the venue now. Go watch some grand finals here of Secret versus Vici Gaming. You guys enjoy it. I know I will be. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. with another daily recap. Have a good night, guys.